Well, good afternoon. Greetings. Thanks for coming along for the Wednesday edition of The Ride Home. Hope you've had a good day so far. And if you're out on the road, thanks for tuning in as you make your way home to the ride. Kath, I see you're wearing a turtleneck today. It's the season.
It was chilly. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty much thinking that from now on until May, I'm going to be wearing a turtleneck.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate a cold neck.
Yeah, I do too. That's my particular.
I hate it.
That's my weak point.
Yeah. I'm okay to be without a coat.
But
if
a
I
cold
have
neck.
to be. I really want mittens and a scarf.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I can kind of take it or leave it.
Right. I feel. I was looking in my cupboard there the other day, and I found
And it was bare.
No, I found a bag of turtlenecks, which last year during the pandemic.
Oh, you decided to get rid of because you were never going to wear them again.
I didn't wear them.
Oh, you
So
never even got them out.
I was thinking, well, I would send those to the dry cleaner maybe at some point.
Did you get your turtlenecks dry cleaned?
Well, I do.
What kind of a feet lifestyle is you living?
These are nice turtlenecks. They're nice.
I mean, I'm lucky that mine get washed on delicate every once in a while.
No. And then you got if I wash them, then I got to set them out. I'm not going to put them in a dryer. They're wool.
You have wool turtlenecks?
Yeah.
Well, pardon.
I mean, wait a second. Have I fallen into some sort of fashion trap here that I didn't know even existed?
I've never had a wool turtleneck in my life.
I'm going to wear one. Okay, first of all.
First of all, it doesn't even sound good to me. It sounds like it's very scratchy.
They may be lamb's wool.
Oh, no, they're cashmere.
They may be soft. I've fallen deeper and deeper into this as we go on. Each sentence further,
But you're distancing yourself from the average person.
Here's the deal. All I'm saying is last year I had some turtlenecks and I thought, these are dirty. I'm not going to wash them. Or even, do the woolite thing. I'm going to send them to the dry cleaners. However, they're just sitting in a bag in my closet. I've never done anything with them. That's all I'm saying.
This has just opened up a whole new view.
What the heck?
And
what are you wearing a turtleneck?
This is not wool, and all of this, I guarantee you, is machine washable.
2 turtlenecks.
Well, one's a sweater, and one's like
a turtleneck.
Yeah, like an inside layer situation.
Anyway, it's not even that cold out there, is it?
It's just damp and gross, and so I thought I'd just,
It's forecast
jump
for today
ahead.
is damp and gross.
Why not?
All right.
That's how you feel about it.
All right.
That's how you should say it.
All right. Without further ado, my fashion quest or choices. Kath, please give us the news stories of the day, the top 4 at 4.
My printer isn't working.
I don't want to hear excuses.
No, and I'm serious. And so I am reading this from my iPad, which makes me feel a little out of sorts.
You're a pro.
For Wednesday, October 27th, 2021. Number 1. A proposed $16 million project, John, would upgrade Pittsburgh's streetlights to more efficient LEDs. Though 2 council members said they've already heard pushback from residents. I'd be one of those.
Why?
I hate LEDs. According to the Trib, the conversion project
I'm not going anywhere near
is expected to cut energy costs by $1 million a year, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and create union jobs. Plus, they'll comply with the city's new dark skies lighting standards, which aim to reduce light pollution and provide a healthy natural environment for bird migration, John. Council members Anthony Coghill and Deb Gross said they've both heard complaints about the proposal and complaints about existing LED lights in the city from constituents. So everybody's complaining about everything.
Right.
They plan to look into the issue further before the proposal appears on the city council agenda for further discussion next Wednesday. Number 2. Well, you want to comment on the LEDs?
I got nothing.
Number 2. The Great Resignation, and that's in air quotes, is sparking upheaval in the job market as COVID-19 drags on, and no group has been impacted more than women. New LinkedIn data finds that the number of job transitions for women surged in 2021. Now, a job transition can mean any type of job change, from dropping out of the workforce altogether to finding a better paying job. But according to CBS News, 54%, that's amazing, 54% more women have transitioned into a different job in the past year, which is a record.
We were leaving yesterday and walking down the hall. The other end of the hall's totally empty.
Totally empty.
The guy said, we were a phone center here. We're all leaving. They said, if you want to come and grab your stuff or take anything, feel free.
But we're working at home.
Yeah.
Women in the workplace are apparently assessing their career goals against a number of benchmarks, including job flexibility, salary, and whether a workplace has a vaccine mandate. According to a survey of more than 2,000 workers, about 4 in 10 women say they are experiencing burnout, while 1/3 say their income is not enough to pay for their family expenses. Number 3. Former Pirate Charlie Morton continues to be great, as do countless Major League ball players after they leave the Pirates. Yeah?
Yeah.
Anyway, Charlie took a smash to his right shin in the second inning of the first game of last night's World Series, and though he would remain in the game to obtain 3 more outs, he was later found to have fractured his fibula, which also means he broke his leg.
Mm-hmm. But he continued to pitch with a broken leg.
Atlanta quickly announced that Morton will miss the rest of the World Series, but expected to be ready to go by spring training. Another notable from last night. Did you watch it?
No.
Me neither. Jorge Soler blasted Framber. Is his first name Framber?
I'm not even watching.
Valdez's third pitch of the game deep over the left field fence. It was the first time in World Series history that the first batter of the game homered.
Oh, first time ever.
First time ever. It's surprising. It's never happened before.
Yeah, I think so too.
And number 4. According to USA Today, the race for the Heisman Trophy has coalesced around 5 quarterbacks with a legitimate chance at the greatest individual honor in college sports. Bryce Young of Alabama, Matt Corral from Ole Miss have led the charge since September. Now there's also Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud and Oklahoma true freshman Caleb Williams, noticed on a weekly basis. And then there is, wait for it, Kenny Pickett, who has Pittsburgh on track for an ACC championship. USA Today goes on to say that Pickett made the most of his big opportunity against Clemson by throwing 302 yards, 2 TDs, no turnovers, and 2 absolutely pivotal runs. That was not included. That was my insertion. As they beat Clemson 27-17. Which left Pitt as the only ACC Coastal team still unbeaten in conference play. Combine his numbers, says the USA Today, and the Panthers' success to get a pretty solid case for Pickett getting All-America status and postseason hardware. And that is your top 4 at 4.
Are you saying that this may be the year that Pitt does not break your heart?
I can't even say that out loud because I graduated from Pitt in 1991, and they've broken my heart pretty much every year.
Yeah.
Since then, which
But
is
there
a
is
lot of
light on the
years and a
horizon.
lot of hearts. He is just a great player.
I love watching him.
And I love the fact that he, against a lot of advice, decided to come back for a senior year.
Yeah.
We thank Peyton Manning for that.
He's helped himself tremendously by doing
And Peyton
so.
Manning's helped him. And actually, but you know what I was thinking the other day? Everybody's, of course, giving Peyton Manning a lot of, props for saying, hey, you encourage Kenny Pickett to do the right thing. But Kenny Pickett didn't have to listen to him. There are a lot of people that would just be like, well, you know what? This is my time and I need to get into the pros and start making money. And he could have said, sorry.
Yeah. He was very wise to listen.
He was.
he not? Very nice. All right, well, go Pitt.
I like how he said very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Go Pitt.
Very nice.
Because I love
Oh,
Pitt.
yeah, now he's go Pitt.
I'm saying I've always been go Pitt.
You've never get out of here.
I've always been
I
go
gave you a
Pitt.
chance on Friday, Pitt or Penn State, and you chose your side.
And then I said I love both Pitt and Penn State.
And I said you can't. And then we watched Penn State lose in 9 overtimes.
I still love both of them.
Okay.
That's how it is. All right, what do puppy training and spiritual habits have in common?
You can't wait to find out. Is that next?
Yes, that
All
is
right.
next. Pastor Josh Brown will join us about the importance of cultivating consistency and then some. It's the Ride Home with John and Kathy. Turtleneck. So what does puppy training in the early stages and our spiritual life have in common?
I'm hoping we're about to find out.
All right. You're not going to proffer a guess at all. And
Well, I mean, I've never had a puppy.
Oh, that's right. You never.
I've never had a puppy. But I can imagine that a lot of it has to do with establishing boundaries and being consistent.
The boundaries.
It's just, I guess.
All right. Pastor Josh Brown is with us. Pastor Brown is a regular guest on our show. He joins us from Bellefield Presbyterian Church in the Oakland neighborhood here in the city of Pittsburgh. Hey, Pastor. How you doing?
John, Kathy, I'm doing well. It's good to be with you guys once again.
Our pleasure.
Okay, so is it about boundaries and consistency, Josh?
Consistency was where I was going to head as we talked about it, but I think boundaries are certainly a part of it, too.
What do you mean, like boundaries? Like, I hope there's not like a rolled-up newspaper in this. Right?
No. Just so I mean, I heard a little bit of an intro there, but maybe just to set the scene for everybody else here a little bit. Our family got a dog not too long ago. Well, we had a dog for years. She was almost 14 years old. She died earlier this summer, and at that point in the life, she was so much a part of the family. We didn't have to think much at all about training her. She kind of knew what to do. It was just there. And then with a new puppy in the last few weeks, I'm remembering that, it took a lot to get to that point. That didn't just happen overnight. That didn't happen without any effort. Didn't happen just accidentally. It took a lot of consistency early on to get her to that point where she was. And now that we've got this new puppy, we are remembering that. And as I was having a totally separate conversation with somebody just a couple days ago about developing just some spiritual disciplines in your life, simple things like prayer and Bible reading, just focused time with the Lord, just some of the basic things, I was thinking, there's a lot of overlap there in that those things don't just show up accidentally. They don't just come about overnight. It's something that you need to be consistent with in the early stages of trying to learn how to do it. But then it does reach a point where it just becomes natural and it becomes what you do.
That's good. I mean, that's true, Josh. There is a lot of work in training a dog properly, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
I mean, in the downside of it is if you don't do it, or if you're in the process of course, that dog's going to do his business in your house, and that's a great motivator, isn't it?
It is for everybody, yeah. You're right. There's some real incentive to make sure that you can get these things handled well. But it's these are simple ideas. I understand that, but it had been such a long time since we had my family and I had done that. You kind of just forget that. As I mentioned, our other dog was almost 14 years old, so we just thought she just knows what to do. You don't have to tell her hardly anything. She knows the family rhythms and routines even better than we do almost at that point.
Yeah.
And the new little guy that we have doesn't know anything. So it's, I can't just walk in one day and just say, sit and figure out that he's even going to know what I'm talking about at all, let alone how to respond to that, let alone just by doing it once, assuming that he's good for the rest of his life. You just have to work at it. You have to make sure you're intentional with it. You have to be deliberate. You have to be very consistent. That's the big thing. We've been talking with my sons about it and said, a big thing is consistency. When we are, if the family here is trying to work with him, we need to make sure we're using the same words, the same commands. Just needs to be very consistent because that's how you learn.
Right, and simple's better, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely it is. And as I said, a conversation then, which may have seemed unrelated at first, kind of at least it linked up in my mind. I was talking with somebody just about developing some of those spiritual practices. As I said, things like maybe just daily prayer in the morning or some scripture reading or things. And I offered him some very, very similar counsel in saying, look, if it doesn't come natural, if it's not your just habit at this particular point, that's okay. Just be consistent with it, and it's not going to take shape overnight. But if you are intentional about it as you do it, it does become something that just gets a little more ingrained in just your own rhythms and routines of life. And I think there's certainly a lot of places you can point to in Scripture for that. One of the places I think that came to mind for me was in Acts chapter 2. It's a very famous passage. I'm sure you and many of your listeners know it well. Right after Pentecost, there's a description then of the early church, and people often hold up that little description to as this kind of ideal of what the church should be or look like. What I notice in there is, though, that there is that element of intentional consistency. For example, this is Acts chapter 2, verses 42 and following. It says that they devoted themselves to these things. And then after that, it says day by day they were doing them. So to me, that's speaking of intentional consistency.
Josh Brown is with us from Belfield Presbyterian Church in the Oakland district of Pittsburgh. Josh, one thing I notice about the passage, and when I put myself in like the position of the puppy, and my frustrations over the years with reading and prayer and just general spiritual disciplines, the thing that helps them to make sense for me is when they're in the context of community. And so I think different people are different. A lot of it has to do with personality. My husband is unbelievably disciplined. And so he gets up and does, before it's 5 a.m, he's done his yoga, his whole workout, and his devotions. And I'm still turning over, right? It's just really discouraging. So we all have to come at it differently. But I do think, at least from what we're reading here in Acts 2 and my own experience, that our spiritual disciplines tend to make a lot of sense when we do share them in some ways in a community of believers. What do you say about that?
I think that's spot on, Kathy. You're right. Everything in there is written in the plural, and it's talking about the community there. They devoted themselves to these things, and some of the things they devoted themselves to, it says, was simply just breaking bread, that is, sharing meals in one another's homes and just being together. So there are the things we would think of more like prayer and worship and those things, but it also just says they were together. And I understand there are all kinds of challenges to us doing that in our particular moment right now. But yeah, doing it together, I think, is a part of it, and being intentional and being consistent. Certainly, if it's a new thing, this was a new thing. I mean, these were the first believers after Jesus' resurrection and ascension and the sending of the Spirit at Pentecost. So they were all learning new patterns and rhythms of life.
Right. I can't imagine what that would be like in the early days. Let's all pray together. And what did that sound like as people were grappling with the idea of prayer? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, on that particular front, I mean, especially the folks who would have been coming out of a Jewish background, that would not have been a new thing to them. I mean, daily prayer, even multiple times a day prayer, was something that they had engaged in. There was a new focus to it. There was a new way that they were understanding it, for sure. So some of the stuff would translate, but you're right, a lot of it would be new. And I mean, for the perceptive listeners out there, and I know you have a lot of them, there's an obvious point where the whole puppy analogy breaks down very critically, in that we're not engaging in things like prayer or Bible reading or anything like that to get a treat from God and a pat on the head and a good boy. That's obviously where the analogy totally breaks down. That's not why we're doing these things, to try to get a reward. But because of what God has done for us, these are just the ways that we grow in our relationship with Him. And the intentional consistency, I think, that's the point where the analogy holds up. Maybe the rest of it falls apart.
No, it doesn't. Because when you think about the intentionality of being at Sunday worship or Wednesday worship or Bible study or Sunday school.
Showing up, as someone said, years ago, some very smart person, showing up is like, 90% of the gig.
Right.
It is, yeah. And Eugene Peterson made famous a phrase it actually the phrase that came
long
from
obedience.
Nietzsche. Yeah, but the long obedience in the same direction. And he made that phrase famous through a little book that he wrote on the Psalms of Ascents, which is a great little thing. And that's a wonderful way to think of it. It's a long obedience in the same direction. It's not an instant overnight thing. Kathy, your husband, I'm sure that he probably didn't start that routine once and then it instantly took hold in his life.
No. But interesting, just like you're saying, and again, I'm going back to the puppy analogy, once it's established, it's very hard to break. It seems unnatural to break it. And that's what's so healthy about establishing good patterns, and why it's so hard for us, of course, when we have cyclically negative patterns in our lives, is they're very hard to break because we're just people of habit. But also going back to the Bible reading thing, Josh, I feel like also. In the past, just doing the. I'm going to study my Bible by letting the Holy Spirit I'm going to let it open to a spot, and then I'll just read it.
Let your fingers do the walking.
Or not, let the Holy Spirit do the walking. I'm not saying that the Holy Spirit wouldn't work that way. Of course, I'm not presumptuous in that way. However, I do think that coming at the Scriptures in some kind of regular or a strategic approach, I'm going to read this book. Or I'm going to study this subject through this study in this way. I really think you have a much better chance of consistent success that way.
I think you do. Having a plan is not ever a bad thing. And on another thing, maybe related to that, is changing it up from time to time can also be a kind of a stimulating thing. I also had another conversation with a guy just the other day who's been a pastor for over 35 years. He's getting close to retiring, and he told me that just in the last year was for him the first time that he sat down and did like a chronological Bible reading over the course of a year. I mean, he'd probably read his Bible, I don't even know how many times, and, some sections of it countless times. But he said that he had never done one of those chronological plans straight through. And for him, he said, I noticed all kinds of things in there that I just hadn't noticed before. For as many times as I've read, I don't know, the book of Exodus or whatever, I just noticed some things that were different. And that to me was interesting, just changing the way you go about it a little bit, because there's a difference, maybe a fine difference sometimes between a rhythm and a rut. And maybe just changing it a little bit can give us a little spark or just a little different angle that can be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the spark or the angle. I mean,
sure, why not?
A good friend of ours, he is really persistent and consistent with his Bible memorization. And, there's something about that. When you memorize something, whether it's, the Gettysburg Address when you're in 5th grade, and you retain that and you put that in your mind and you repeat those same phrases again and again and again and again and again over, weeks, months, years, decades, it can't help but not change the way you look at things, the way you feel about things, the internal aspect of the things that you've memorized.
That's exactly it, I think. And there's so much depth to Scripture, to keep talking about Bible reading in Scripture. There's so much depth to it anyways that you're never going to exhaust it, first of all. And just finding a little different angle on something. Another simple way to do it, I'm working with a group of people right now. We're just doing a little study of the New Testament. And I suggested, hey, here's just a little simple, kind of a fun thing almost. When you sit down and read the book of Acts, say you get to chapter 16 and it talks about Paul being in Philippi, stop and then read his letter to the Philippians and maybe, make some connections there. Then you read a little further, and in chapters 19 and 20, he's with the elders in Ephesus. Go ahead and stop and read the letter to the Ephesians. It makes something sound a little different, and you kind of hear it in a different way. You think, oh, those aren't just abstract letters. He was writing those to particular people, and that was the context. So, yeah, sometimes just little changes can be a really helpful thing, but being consistent in the broader picture and intentional in the broader picture is going to bear a lot of fruit over time.
That's really good. I really like that idea. I also started, and this is something that I'm sure comes second nature to people who are pastors, but for lay people, I've been reading through the book of Luke, and one of the things I committed to when I started is that I would, as I'm reading along, when I pick up, say I get up in the morning and I pick up my reading, I make sure that I read where I was before. Because one of the things that if you're not a pastor and you're not preaching through passages, you tend to, at least I shouldn't speak for the average person, I tend to remember stories as standalone events instead of looking at them in context of what was Jesus just doing, where was he, what was just happening, and that really changes how that's how you read a regular book.
Or you watch something.
Right?
I mean, you go to your Netflix and you go back, a few scenes
to figure out what happened before. So it's weird.
Yeah, you get the previously on right at the beginning of your show.
Yeah.
Isn't it weird, though, that we approach the Bible differently? We look at it, maybe because we're deep in, devotional culture or something, we think, I'm just going to read this passage and it's going to be really meaningful, instead of reading it like you'd read any other book.
Yeah, there's enough for me. One thing that I noticed a few years ago, there are a couple of different translations that put out what they call readers' Bibles. I know the ESV has one, and they take out the chapter and verse markings in there. Now, chapter and verse markings are, I think, first of all, I think a lot of people know this. Those were put in years and years and years and years later, centuries later, to help you be able to locate passages quickly and easily, and that's a good thing. But they weren't in there originally, and even something like a couple years ago was the first time for me I sat down and read, and you talk about the Gospels, I sat down and read the Gospels with none of the chapter and verse markings in there, and you're right, it was just remarkable. It was like, this just reads more like my eye isn't getting distracted by all these things. There's just a flow to it. You kind of just, it's not, the words aren't any different. There's the same translation I've been reading for years, but you kind of just, there's a different sense to it, and even those little things, can be helpful. But the broader picture, again, is being intentional, being consistent with what you're doing in the broader level, is what I think is a really helpful practice.
That's good. Josh, always a pleasure. Thanks for being with us.
Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a good day today.
You as well. Pastor Josh Brown, Belfield Presbyterian Church in the Oakland neighborhood here in the city of Pittsburgh. Sunday worship at 10:30.
And 5.
Take a quick break, come back. Guys and their dogs and dating apps. I don't know.
Dogs are important.
Very much so.
I believe cats are important as well.
Yep. Sure.
Since I have two, Gus and Shar, who are listening to the program right now, I'm sure.
They're on the ride home.
Our producer, Christy, has a dog. Could be one of the cutest dogs I've ever seen in the entirety of my life. Milo. Christy, would you like to speak adoringly of him?
I mean, he's just the cutest little mini dachshund ever.
He's like and he needs clothes.
He does.
He does.
And I taught him how to give me a high five, and he's just the cutest thing.
Of course he is.
All right, so Christy, if you were by chance looking at a dating app,
Like if you would do that.
In my free time.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just put it in the theoretical.
well, let's hope it's not during the ride home. However, if you were and you saw a guy with a dog in his photo, you think, oh,
What would you think?
It depends on the dog.
I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
That was a variable.
So, like, I don't want a big dog. If Milo, I don't want. He's so small.
Oh, wait. So if a guy's posing with his Great Dane, it's a no-go.
I would think, because wouldn't you think Milo would get hurt?
Maybe, maybe not. Depends upon the vibe, or the attitude, or the demeanor of the dog. I mean, Great Danes can be very gentle.
Yeah, Christy.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a dog expert.
Right. However, we saw something in the New York Post. Men with dogs in their dating apps, their pictures, are more likely to, quote, settle down.
This is new research, Christy. Pay attention, please.
I'm listening.
Yeah, conducted by Professor Marianne Fisher. You know what kind of job she has? She's an evolutionary psychologist.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea what that means. From St. Mary's University in Canada. But she analyzed 750 dating profiles from both men and women, asking the respondents if they were looking for long-term relationships or just a short-term fling. For men who were searching for something serious, an average of 8 in 10 had a dating app photo which featured their dog.
Really? 8 in 10?
Yep.
Well, that kind of makes sense in a way, doesn't it? You're taking care of a dog. You think,
Yeah, you know what long-term commitment looks like.
let's hope so, right? And like our pastor, Josh, he's all about training the dog to make sure that there's, things are in order,
Which, believe me, those things should be in order.
hopefully.
Dr. Fisher believes the puppy pics subconsciously signal to single women that a man is trustworthy and responsible.
Okay, now you're going to start a run on guys who are going to go out and like borrow their buddy's dog,
Maybe.
right?
I just am trying to be honest about the research findings. Christy, does that change your perspective on any of your dating apps?
Probably not.
All right.
All right, fair enough. There you heard it from Christy yourself.
What if Milo didn't like a date that you had? Has Milo actively disliked somebody? We haven't had a lot of people over because COVID, right?
I mean, I've had some people over. He's never he's like disliked dogs in the neighborhood.
But he's not bitten as somebody.
No, he likes most people.
Okay.
All right, very nice.
But if Milo doesn't like somebody, I do believe he's out.
I would, yeah, of course.
He
'cause
should be out.
He's out.
Dogs have that sense, do they not?
Okay.
All right, our next guest, Ann Kennedy. Ann Kennedy complains about things.
I can't wait. It's next.
All right, it's a Wednesday edition. I'm the sixth of 7 kids. And I remember being a kid, and you had to be very careful how you said things in the house because there were a lot of ears. But I'd say, Mom, I need a new pair of tennis shoes. And that would just roll right off her. It wouldn't be like, oh, we'll do that this Friday on payday or something like that. She'd go, well, your birthday's coming up. Yeah, my birthday's like 5 months away. Christmas just passed. And that was a standard, right?
Oh, a standard reply.
Oh, always. Because there was never like, there was 7 kids. No one's getting like, sort of like a surprise gift. Here's a surprise gift. Get outside and do some work. Ann Kennedy's with us. Ann's a regular guest on our show. She's the author of Nailed It, 365 Sarcastic Devotionals for Angry and Worn Out People. She herself, I'm sure, like my mom, she puts things in order in that house. She's got a house full of kids. Hey, Ann, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Do you know anything
Do you
about?
have shoes on?
Yeah,
I got shoes.
Yeah,
Not my birthday either.
His shoes. He keeps bugging me now. Now that he's off on his own, he says, "Hey, Kath, I could really use some new shoes."
Yeah, wait till your birthday.
Yeah, I said your birthday's coming up. Anyway,
Exactly.
and so you've got a small menagerie of children yourself, 6 of them, and you were complaining about several things in your Friday post. One of them was trying to keep the haircuts going with all of you, especially during COVID. Are you still not venturing out into a barbershop or salon, or is that something you don't do because you feel competent yourself?
Well, I've always cut everyone's hair but my own. Like COVID was great because my kids were the only people with haircuts because I'd already been doing it. So that was fine. Only I added in, and I've always cut my husband's hair. But I have tried really hard over the years not to cut my own hair, and COVID, basically now I have long hair. So that's bad.
I would never
Then I finally-
I would never cut anybody's hair.
What? Never. My wife cuts our hair.
I know. I just have no
I mean, I
capacity for
love-
that.
I love cutting hair. I took to it naturally. I started cutting my infant's hair when she was born with a head of hair, and I just would snip at it, and then I just kept going and watched YouTube videos. And so I
impressive.
have never, without any training, I'm able to give people whom I love and know already haircuts.
Really?
I don't go around giving haircuts to people I don't know.
Right, so like if
and I
John
don't accept money.
if John and I drove up, like you probably wouldn't want to do that for us.
No.
Oh, that's not going to happen because I once said to my wife, I think I'm going to go, to the barber. She gave me a look like I was going out having a gin and tonic on a Friday night. I mean, that's not happening in our house. That's like sort of like, it's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I can cut it. Yeah, I save my family hundreds and hundreds of dollars a year by cutting everybody's hair myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm able to do it. Like, I don't give my kids don't really look like I cut their hair. If they did look like that, I would let them get haircuts from real people. But,
Okay, but so then
I'm competent.
you provide a good haircut, but no one, like one of your daughters, hasn't picked up the mantle, so to speak, and said, Mom, let me try to cut your hair.
I mean, they say that every time. Oh, let me cut your hair, and I so far have said no, thank you every single time because they are all really spacey. So I've paid for my own. I know with all the money I've saved, I've paid for my own haircut. But then it's been hard for me to find somebody to cut my hair in the wake of COVID. The person who was doing it moved away, so I was cutting everybody else's hair, so I did take the scissors to my own. And I think it's okay, but it was a moment of, like, what's that called? Where you probably shouldn't do it, but you're doing it anyway.
But you're right.
It's got to be like
I
a
believe
long
you.
German word for that.
I believe you yourself call that the dismal feeling of drab desperation. I think that's what's in your Friday
Oh,
piece.
yeah, that's what it was. Yes.
The dismal feeling of drab desperation.
Not to quote the author to the author, but I think I have
That's good.
to.
One time my wife was cutting my hair and she put the clippers. Sometimes she used the clippers, and she just started and put the clippers to my head, and then she was standing behind me and she said, "Oh," which is what you do not want to hear. Oh,
Because there's no going back when
there's
you're
no
cutting.
going back. She cut like this gigantic chunk out of my head, so I was like, Cut it all off. Just cut it all off. And there I walked around like a little
just
cue ball.
and just be done with it.
Exactly. Oh.
Ann Kennedy's
For a
with
long
us.
time.
She
Yes.
blogs daily at preventinggrace.com, which is in the Pathos section of the internet. Is that the way to say it? The Pathos section of the internet?
Maybe.
That's good.
And
Good.
you're rounding out the birthday season. Apparently, your fifth child is about to be 12 years old.
Wow.
And so,
Today.
Today. Happy birthday.
She's 12 today, yeah, and she's. We had to celebrate on Sunday because we're not there with her. So, yeah, that's great. It's just another way to fail at being a mother is to not be there.
Oh, there's a story there, but we don't. Do we want to go into
for
that?
the birthday. Okay, so
No, you
she's
don't want to hear it.
she's 12 years old. I would like to see, as a mother who perpetually fails, I would like to hear the story.
No.
No, yes, I
We'll
would.
skip right by
nope,
that.
we're going right to it. So, and how do you like reconcile in your head moments when you feel like you should be there, but with being the mother of 6 kids, you can't always?
Well, the main way that you reconcile it is by just having one kid that you fail all the time. So you don't fail all 6. You just pick out one, and you're just never there for her
Yeah.
birthday.
Yeah.
And that way, it's just limited. It keeps everything. Boundaries are
Right.
important. So
The one child's kind of like the scab that you keep on picking.
yeah, exactly.
Right. It saves on, I'm sure, therapy bills later on in life for all the rest of them. Right.
Right.
Well, you just have hers, and then everybody can contribute and share.
That poor thing.
Share. Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
tragic. Ann.
we did celebrate. She's getting 2 celebrations, and we felt guilty, so we probably end up buying her more stuff. Like we did buy her shoes. In fact, I don't buy shoes unless it's your birthday, but sometimes when it's your birthday, I also don't buy you shoes, even though you've asked repeatedly, because it's so hard to find shoes. They're not being delivered from, off those trucks. They're stuck in California. Like there are no shoes in this country to buy for all my children. So,
I
but
have heard
I
about
bought
this.
her shoes.
I didn't know about this shoe shortage, which is a hard thing to say, until a friend of ours, posted online the other night. He went out to buy shoes. Did you see this post?
No.
And he was going like from this store to this store to this store looking for shoes for himself, and like the shelves were nearly empty.
No kidding. Really?
Yeah, I mean, this season, so Payless went out of business recently,
Right.
maybe right before COVID, and that's where I bought all my shoes for, as long as I've had children. And so I have been wandering up and down both the internet and in real life, like looking for shoes for the last several years. And I'm not kidding you. Some of my children, they do have shoes on their feet, but it's like we're in the Great Depression. I guess
Really?
I shouldn't say that, but I mean they look ridiculous. Like shoes too small, shoes too big. They don't match anything. It's weird, and I wasn't good at it before, but now you did say you wanted me to complain, right?
I did.
Because I could
sure,
go
that's how
on
we
about
started
this
this.
for like another 15 minutes, but I have a lot of some emotion about this issue because I was failing already, and now somebody out there is helping me to fail more.
Good. And winter's coming. So now that means not only shoes, but boots on top of shoes.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like somebody needs to go to wherever they're keeping all these shoes and just beg for the shoes to be delivered so that American children can have shoes again. That'll be I'll vote for whoever that is.
Right. When they do show up, you'll go, hey, what a selection.
That's amazing.
Yeah, for like years worth of shoes.
Yeah, wow. I had no idea. Or flip-flops. I mean, you can always wear flip-flops.
Ann Kennedy's the author
Yeah.
of Nailed It, 365 Sarcastic Devotionals for Angry and Worn Out People. And based on this conversation, she's a little of both.
Well, she deserves, she's got a lot to handle there.
She lives in upstate New York. She mothers 6 children. She lives with her husband, an Anglican in And you married well, Ann. In our last minute and a half, maybe we should, seem optimistic and hopeful. Just look at the wonderful spouse you have and the wonderful, beautiful home you have and your terrific cats.
I do. I have a great life, and I do have some lovely cats, and my husband is really great too. I mean, not that they're on the same
Plane.
level of emotional plane, but my husband and I are about to go and do a retreat, and we've been invited. I love this so much to to talk. The retreat is about failure, and we are really delighted that somehow, like, everyone knew that it should be us that covered this topic. So
That's great.
It's wonder, like, we were born for such a time as this.
So you don't have have to worry about like a lot of show prep.
No, we're just going to show up. And see who we really are.
Right. In your homemade haircuts and maybe bad shoes. That's good.
Here's some family photos.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
I like the whole thing. Anne, we love you. Take care.
We do, Ann. You're the best.
Love you too. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Anne Kennedy's the author of Nailed It, 365 Sarcastic Devotionals for Angry and Worn Out People. There really isn't another book like it.
No, there isn't. And I'm telling you, she's a great read, and she blogs almost
very
daily
funny.
at the Pathos website. Just really excellent. Ann Kennedy. Take a quick break, come back. When we do come back,
Third anniversary of Tree of Life shooting today.
Members of the Pittsburgh community gathered at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Squirrel Hill Wednesday morning to remember the 11 people who were killed 3 years ago today. Families of the victims embraced after a moment of silence outside the entrance. The names of the deceased were read, and people prayed and stopped and commemorated this day 3 years, shockingly, after this heartbreak is still on the city of Pittsburgh.
I hope it's a comfort to the families to know that the rest of the world hasn't forgotten either. I mean, I remember when we talked to one of our guests on 9/11 this year. I asked her what the 20th anniversary of 9/11 meant to her. And she said, well, it doesn't mean anything to me. It means something to everybody else. But for those of us that were there, 9/11 is every day. I'm sure it's the same with the families who lost loved ones in the Tree of Life, is
That's
that
right.
it doesn't seem like 3 years. It's every day.
Right. It's another day. A couple things about this day. Of course, it's one of those days where, as a Pittsburgher, you remember the day. It's one of those, I was here when I first heard it. It was unbelievable to think that happened in a place, for me, living in the East End, you go by it
All the time.
thousands of times. Shockingly still, and in some ways a comfort that I see the fencing up around the Tree of Life. And I'm glad that it's still there. When it comes down, whenever that day comes, I don't know how long that will be, years perhaps, it will change the dynamic. And I really despise local print coverage or local news coverage where they continue to show the shooter's face.
And give his name. I'm so
Don't
sick
do
of
that.
it. I know.
Don't do that. It's such an insult to everyone.
He doesn't deserve it.
And the snail's pace of justice in this country, where 3 years after this mass murder, there's not even a trial on the dockets that it's ready to, because we're just so careful with this man's feelings and intentions and making sure that we do right by the judicial process. I mean, it's an insult. I mean, I get a fair trial, but it should be a fair and speedy trial. Clearly, the man is guilty. I mean, there's no doubt about that in anyone's mind. I mean, he was shot and crawling out of the synagogue, and then he made anti-Semitic remarks. So what more do we need? But we're going to spend all this time and all this money. I don't want the man put to death. At the same time, I think especially for the families, and of course there's never closure for anyone, but just feels wrong. We continue, in some ways you're held hostage to the proceedings.
Right. Which is what the family didn't want. The families didn't want that.
No.
But that's what's happening.
So again, as you say, Kath, it's just another day. But at the same time, for those of us not directly, intimately connected, it is a day of remembrance and a day of prayer and a day of thanks as well. To be here in this great city and to see Pittsburgh respond the way it has, that was a very good moment in our city's life, as much as the tragedy encapsulated a horrible moment. We'll take a quick break.
Coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, we'll talk about beauty being desire made manifest. And also for young adults, how can they do holidays this year on a budget? We all got to back off because those trucks from Amazon, they might not come when you think they're coming. For over a year, we broadcast this show from our homes. I was in my spare room,
I was in my spare room.
and our producer at that time, New Mike, was here in the station, keeping the trains running on time. Now, during that time, a lot of things changed, like all of us who worked at home. You just get into different patterns and you develop different, workspaces and whatever.
Wait, just one more sidebar. Do you go back to that workspace?
I was just in it last night.
I don't want to go back to that. I try to avoid it at all costs.
The room has been totally changed around.
I don't like
in
it.
our house, so it's just totally different. Everything's gone.
All right, good.
Absolutely everything is gone.
Mine's pretty much the same. But I look at it and go,
I don't want to get into that again.
yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One of the biggest things that changed in me, other than having to commute to work, because we were doing the same work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of that was very similar for us.
Still very busy.
We were fortunate in that way. But one of the things that was very different is what I was wearing. Now, for an entire, and I mean this, for almost an entire year, I never wore anything but sweatpants.
Really? What?
Yeah.
For a full year? I didn't
Pretty
know
much.
that.
I mean, until I started, because we were obviously working from home.
Yeah.
If I went out anywhere, who cares?
You wore sweatpants outside?
Sure.
Really?
Well, you don't have to be judgy. I'm being vulnerable. It's a sensitive time for me.
Okay, well, here's just my quick sidebar. I'm doing PT, because I had that little wreck. Mm-hmm. IDG Communications. Mary, sure. And anyway, the only time I've ever worn sweatpants out is when I'm doing PT.
Okay. Well, you proud of that?
Well, it freaks me out that so many people are wearing sweats out. Like, I grew up in an era where, like, sweatpants were, like, for gym class. And now they're, like, fashionistas.
Well, I was not being a fashionista when I was wearing them. Christy, do you wear sweatpants out?
Maybe like joggers, but not sweatpants.
Mm-hmm.
What are joggers? Same thing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I would use that as an umbrella term.
Yoga pants.
Yes. Or something like that. I was not wearing jeans or actual pants for a year.
Really?
Yes.
I had no idea. I'm doing the show with you, and you're wearing that changes the nature of things in some weird way.
I got to be honest. Your response is disheartening.
Well, I was wearing a suit and tie.
You get out of here.
Okay, just
Stop
kidding.
it.
Just kidding. I was
Okay.
not, but you know what I'm saying.
I am not alone in what I'm saying, because there's an article in CBC today saying that the number of stores selling fashion-forward comfort clothing,
What does that mean? Fashion forward.
is expanding like an elasticated waistband.
Oh, no.
When millions of office dwellers moved en masse to work from home in the early stages of the pandemic, it sparked a change in fashion trends too, since people no longer needed the same clothes for the same activities they were used to. Men, who typically wore the classic suit and tie to the office, found themselves putting those Oxford shirts and three pieces to the back of the closet and grabbing something less staid. And women, who normally dressed to impress with a blouse and slacks or pencil skirt, were now donning something more comfortable while on the job. And that forced clothing retailers to change what they do too. Anyway, so it talks about all of these different, couture companies that are only doing comfortable pants.
No kidding. Couture.
Yes. Comfortable pants.
Couture? Comfort?
Comfortable pants. Exactly.
I mean, the two just don't make any sense at all.
Well, that's because you're not paying attention, apparently, because it's a big deal.
Okay, now wait. Now, so I feel as though I've changed. I mean, now every day I'm wearing, jeans pretty much. I used to.
I wear jeans every day, too. I feel like I'm dressed up.
But I used to
Compared
wear.
to what I was doing this time last year.
Well, I used to wear dress pants to work.
Yeah. Well,
and
so
dress
did I.
shirts. Heck, the guy down the hall wears sweatpants. I mean, he wears jogging shorts.
Not shorts.
Well, whatever they are. Well, you know what I'm saying.
Right. A tracksuit, I
A
would call
tracksuit.
it.
That's what he's wearing. A tracksuit. I mean, clearly he's not like, an athlete. I mean, and our boss here in the corner office, he's wearing ties and
Pocket squares.
Pocket squares. I mean, talk about couture.
Okay, so here's my question. So do we feel like we're less dressed up than we were before COVID?
100%.
Christy?
Not really.
Okay, so
wearing
you're
the
pretty
same.
much the same.
Yeah.
Well, look, you're wearing a cardigan sweater. You get a sweatshirt on, or is that
No, it's a cardigan, a nice T-shirt,
nice T-shirt?
and jeans, and
Isn't
boots.
that funny?
And boots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have nice T-shirts that I wouldn't wear. Like a nice, yeah.
Nice T-shirt for a girl is different than a nice T-shirt for a guy.
What you mean? There's like no sweat stains.
Well, no. I'm just saying.
Okay, so
Anyway, I think it's interesting. It is an across-the-board change in the kinds of clothes people are buying now than what they were buying before COVID.
I mean, couture. Look, I mean, I don't know anybody who buys couture. Right.
Right.
I mean, that's
It's
like
not like
off the
that's-
charts. I mean,
right.
that's like somebody, in a different zip code.
Right.
But couture,
Comfort,
relaxed.
Comfort. Yep.
I mean,
Because people can't be inside for a year and not change.
But see, that doesn't
and
make
so
any
one
sense.
of the things about being inside is you get used to certain things and you think, why did I do the other thing? And so the big thing, according to this article, is comfort. People are saying, why was I uncomfortable in those clothes for that long?
But couture is like the ultimate of high fashion.
And people still want to be
Well, how do you
fashionable,
make
but they want to be fashionable in a comfortable way.
I would like to see couture sweatpants.
Well, of course, you could look at the Wall Street Journal
That doesn't make any sense to me. All right.
fashion page, which we've done a lot, and you're going to see comfortable things as opposed to pencil skirts and heels and a lot of things that especially women used to wear a
Right.
year and a
I
half
guess
ago.
so, yeah. I mean, women always bear the burden of fashion.
No kidding. We bear
they
the burden
not?
of a lot.
I guess.
Look at how weighed down Christy and I are.
Yeah, I can see it on your faces, the dark creases in your forehead.
I can't believe you did. What'd you think I was wearing jeans that whole time? You think I was wearing dress pants the whole time I was home?
I don't know. I mean, I just really didn't consider it. I'm just surprised you were wearing sweatpants.
I sure was. Or leggings or yoga pants but it was always a comfortable pant
Well, I'm not.
every single day.
I'm not, tooting you at all. Or,
Oh, it seems like you were.
I'm not at all. No,
Okay.
look, I had a sleeping dog next to me. Okay, I had Gussie there.
Yeah,
So who am I to say boo?
You shouldn't be saying boo.
All right.
Because you know what? I don't feel badly about it. I feel really good about it. I feel like I've made a change for the better.
For the comfortable,
Yeah, and I got rid of about 1/3 of what I had in my closet.
have you though? Mm-hmm. You got any turtlenecks?
Yeah, I have a lot of turtlenecks, and I machine wash every single one of them.
Now look, okay.
We talked about this at the beginning of the 4 o'clock hour for those of you who are just joining us. And John inadvertently confessed that he dry cleans his turtlenecks.
I do, because they're nice turtlenecks.
That is the most ridiculous. I can't even believe. Because you're talking about couture. Who's dry cleaning their turtlenecks?
I am.
Oh, my God.
I don't dry clean much, but here's the deal.
If you're going to dry clean something, you would pick a turtleneck?
It's a nice turtleneck. I don't want to shrink it. I don't want to get pilling on it or anything like that.
Oh, my God.
That's all I'm saying. Or there's some things you kind of go, that's too nice. I'm not going to wash
This is the
it.
person who's disappointed in me for wearing sweats during COVID. He's
And I'm
dry-
poo-pooing couture sweatpants.
Yeah, exactly.
Dry clean your turtlenecks. I have no problem with it.
Hit the button for crying out loud.
Hit the button. Okay, we come back. We're going to talk about beauty.
I can't believe there are dry cleaners that actually would accept a turtleneck.
What do you mean? Like they're
No,
accept
they're
anything.
going to look at you and say, "What is wrong? Can't you put this in the washing
If
machine?"
I walked in with a burlap sack, they'd be happy to dry clean it, considering the state of dry cleaning in this world. The doctor is in. Dr. Kurt Thompson joins us on a monthly basis. He's got a brand new workout called The Soul of Desire, discovering the neuroscience of longing, beauty, and community. It is brand new. And Dr. Thompson, welcome back. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thanks. It's great to be with you guys.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you, Kurt. So this idea of beauty is something that, it can seem esoteric. It's something that, people who have their normal daily functions covered, people who don't have to worry about a 9-to-5 job, or people that have all the food they need, or people that have people who don't have needs can
What, to appreciate beauty?
Yeah. Is that you need to have all your meat. I have a lot of friends who say, I'm too busy for beautiful things.
What?
Yeah. I'm too busy. That's for people who have time, for wealthy people who can appreciate things like that. It's not for the average person.
Right.
So talk about that first, Kurt, and then I want to ask you about what the process is about being a person who would create such a thing.
Yeah. Well, it's you're right. I mean, that's our go-to argument to defend against it. I don't have time for this. Beauty is a luxury. It's something that we put in museums and we put in places that cost money to go see if we're going to see it. Except that when you look at human development, beauty is one of the first things that starts to emerge, although it emerges in one of the most unexpected places, and that is with children. Now, you see, we don't think about this right off when we think about beauty, you don't think about children, but when children develop, as we said in our last conversation, they really want to develop because they have these desires to be known and to be seen. But before long, you will find that children, and this is universal across cultures, across time, children begin to make stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they make stuff and they bring it to you and they want to show it to you. And when they show it to you, they want you to be excited. The 3-year-old brings you their Crayola creation and they want you to put it on the refrigerator and charge money to the neighbors to come see it. This notion to create is not just a matter of creating anything. There is a certain sense in which they long for you to look at this and be wowed by this. They want you to see what they see in their having made it. And when we talk about education, what we're really doing is we're giving kids the opportunity to be curious in order to create in the world in which they have to go and be. Now, we, of course, change all that because we make them anxious about making sure that they get into the right schools and so forth and so on. And it's true that we want them to master material, but we want them to master material on the way to taking that material and building beautiful bridges and creating beautiful, elegant math algorithms so that we can run computer programs. Beauty is inherent in everything that we are as human beings developmentally. And this is long before we even talk about Scripture. This is long before any of that. But our anxiety and our trauma and our shame truncates and beats out of us our awareness and longing for beauty. Because at the end of the day, even when you say, yes, but look, I don't have time for that. I've got to get a meal on the table. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. If you ask somebody, what kind of a meal do you want to put on the table? You might say, well, I don't know. I just got to get something. Is that what you really want? No, we want a meal on the table that people will enjoy. And it's not just going to be like beauty isn't just something that we see. It becomes something that we taste because if on a Wednesday evening when you all go home and families sit down to dinner and something is prepared that really captures our taste buds' attention, people's attention is captured. And we want this. And we would say, and we'll get to next time when we talk, this notion of beauty being inherent in everything that we are. It's not a luxury. In fact, it was what we were made for. That if we are willing to be open to the notion that this is what we were made for, we soon discover that if we start practicing exposing ourselves to beauty, even in the smallest of ways, we find that we then want more and more and more of it and are more willing and likely to create it in all kinds of ways in our daily life.
That's fabulous. So, Kurt, what does that mean then, that we were made for beauty? Go into that.
Well, and we'll talk about this in more detail the next time that we talk next month, but this notion that when we look at the scriptures, the very opening pages of the Genesis account, when God saw that it was good, the Hebrew account of that word good is not just good as inadequate. It's interchangeable with the word beautiful, that God saw that it was beautiful. You rush forward then to the New Testament where we hear Jesus saying, I am not just the good shepherd, I am the beautiful shepherd. This notion that beauty is who God is, and if we are made in God's image, that means that we aren't just creatures who make beautiful things. We are creatures who God sees and longs for us to become living, breathing beauty ourselves. And so then we start to imagine, what is it like to be aware of the fact that when you walk into a room, it's important for you to be aware of the fact that your appearance is literally going to create a greater volume of beauty in the room than was there before you arrived. When's the last time any of us looked at someone or someone looked at us and said, oh my gosh, I just see such luminescence. I see such beauty emerging from you. Now, of course, we'd look around and think like this person's like troubled, right? There's something like, well, why are they talking to me about this? But this notion that Jesus looks at us and sees us not as problems to be fixed primarily, but as artifacts of beauty that are waiting to emerge, changes the notion of how we then see the world. Most of the time that beauty is starting to emerge, we're actually operating much more largely out of our right hemisphere, much more largely with the world, as opposed to observing and judging the world out of our left hemisphere. And so this notion of beginning to practice, first of all, recognizing that beauty is built into the very development of children, and we as adults should also be practicing this. And then next asking this question: what are some things that we can begin to practice looking for that are beautiful in our environment every day, noticing something, in order to begin to prime us to begin to see it in all kinds of spaces that we heretofore weren't expecting. One of the things that we notice, that when people begin to pay attention to beauty, practice doing this on a regular basis, they will begin to report that they are less anxious. They will begin to report that they are more calm. Now, of course, mostly that less anxiety and that calmness takes place during those moments when they are encountering beauty. But here's the catch. When we encounter beauty, our next assignment is for us to have people practice simply remembering what you've done. Practicing, remembering the tree that you literally spent 5 minutes with this morning. I have a friend, Andy, who doesn't pick up any device when he wakes up in the morning. Before he picks up any device, before he turns on his computer, before he touches his phone, he makes it a practice to go outside of his house and within about a 5-minute walk radius of his house, find something in the world that he sees as an artifact of beauty that reminds him of God's creation, and that the day is new, and that the mercy is great, and that beauty is also something that Andy doesn't just witness, but that Andy is that is an artifact that God is creating in Andy as well.
That's good.
That's
so,
really
Kurt,
good.
so there's an intentionality here, right? I mean, so someone or Andy himself developed this process to look at, appreciate, see the beauty around him. But
Make space for it.
Make space for it, right? So a lot of people, though, never had that opportunity, right?
Well, I want to say that, when we say I don't have time for, that's shorthand for I'm not making time for.
Mm-hmm.
We have time. We have time for, let me just say that we can create the time for this. This doesn't take 3 hours to do.
Yeah.
This can take 10 minutes out of your day. And I will tell you this, that when we begin to spend 5 minutes out of our day, you spend 5 minutes out of your day doing this for 6 weeks in a row, you're going to want to spend 10 minutes out of your day doing it. And before you know it, you're going to be making regular practices on the weekends and looking for other things that you can do to have encounters with beauty, because of how life-changing it can become.
I like it.
Wow.
I like it a lot.
That's terrific. The new book. And for those of you watching on YouTube, we're streaming live at The Word Pittsburgh. I'm holding up Kurt's new book right here. It is called The Soul of Desire, Discovering the Neuroscience of Longing, Beauty, and Community. Okay, Kurt, only a couple minutes left. So I want to be sure to ask you about finding beauty during times of difficulty. You start the second chapter in your book talking about a couple that you were counseling, and they thought that they were doing marriage counseling with you, and instead you asked them a question about creating beauty. We don't have time, I guess, for you to tell the whole story, but what's the idea behind that? What does it mean to be thinking about beauty during times of conflict?
One of the things that we point to, and we might come back to this in another conversation, is that when we find ourselves in trouble for whatever reason, whether we're a marriage problem, we're depressed, we're anxious, we find ourselves in trouble, the brain tends to become increasingly isolated. And when it becomes increasingly isolated, it becomes more intent upon looking into the world to just see where the trouble is. So I see the world as a problem to be solved. The more I see the world as a problem to be solved, the more anxious I become. The encounter that we had with beauty, and when I asked this couple, what is the next artifact of beauty that you want your marriage to become, of course, they first thought that I was a little wacky. Why are you asking, what I'd like for you to do is to fix my husband. I'd like you to do is to fix my wife. Like, okay, there's some beauty that you can work on, trying to, make that happen. But the point is that our attention is so captivated by the anxiety-provoking things that we are imagining, that we are paying attention to, that when beauty enters into the picture, it begins to enable us to practice allowing our attention to shift to answering the question, what is it that I want? Not just what is the problem that has to be solved. Because if I think the problem to be solved is my job or my spouse or my kids or something else outside of myself, I'm not going to be open to the notion that I am also not a problem to be solved, but I am beauty waiting to be revealed. And this is uncomfortable for us because what we're going to discover as we talk further about this is that beauty, even within us, is something that Jesus longs to see emerge out of the very places that we hate the most, the very places that we think are the most broken, that we would rather discard. Jesus looks and says, that's where the masterpiece is going to come from.
That's fabulous. That's really good. Kurt, it's always a pleasure. You drill down deep into areas that I can't really fathom. But thanks for this. The Soul of Desire, Dr. Kurt Thompson's brand new book, Discovering the Neuroscience of Longing, Beauty, and Community. It's brand new and out right now. The Soul of Desire, Dr. Kurt Thompson.
Thanks, Kurt.
We'll step away. When we do come back, it's our daily feature. Does this make sense? That's next.
This makes sense.
Does what make sense?
Cloth napkins at home.
Well, in our house, when we pull out the cloth napkins, something really good is coming.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll pull them out for special meals. And I don't know why that is. I mean, certainly,
What do you mean
know,
special meals? Like somebody's birthday, Christmas?
yeah, Christmas, Thanksgiving, even a birthday, or just something like, oh, what are you having tonight? We're going to have like the rare thing that we would have once in a blue moon, like a rack of lamb. Oh, we're going to sit down and have the better plates with the napkins.
Really?
So they do make sense. They're sort of a barometer of the mood and the tone of where we are. They make sense to me. But regular, everyday use, not really. Do they make sense to you?
I want them to.
I get why you would want them
You know,
to.
I want.
Yeah. Because
I-
like a cloth,
I mean, when
paper
you
napkin?
go to a restaurant, don't you appreciate that?
Oh, 100%.
I always appreciate it. And yet, at home, I mean, I wash all sorts of things. I do a lot of laundry. It's not that big of a deal.
Well, if you were using cloth napkins every day, after one meal, would you stretch them out over several meals?
That's just not now.
I'm just saying.
It's just gross.
I'm just saying.
What kind of
I mean,
base
in the old
behavior are
days,
you
people
talking
used,
about?
Well, yeah, people used to use like handkerchiefs, right, all day long. I mean,
That's
look how
different than
unsanitary-
using the same
it's
napkin 2
worse.
days in a row.
It's worse. How unsanitary a handkerchief is
Okay,
all
well,
day long.
Okay, well, I'm not asking if a handkerchief makes sense.
All
I'm
right.
talking about the cloth napkin. I'm saying
One and done feels
I
like
wanna
a very
okay.
wasteful.
But you're doing laundry, so why not just put?
I'm just saying, all of a sudden I've got 30,
Okay,
40
I am
cloth
going
napkins.
to step out and say I'm not living this way. But yes, they do make sense at home.
All right.
I don't know what that means for my future, but I want to stand up and say it.
It means you wish you were Martha Stewart.
I don't.
Okay, here's for the first time ever I'm doing a visual.
Oh,
Okay, on does this make sense? Here is my computer
yes.
plug.
Yes.
Three prong.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a 3-prong outlet here, so what do? I get the little gray thing,
I love the little gray thing.
and then I plug in the 3-prong, and the little gray thing is 2-prong, and then I put it into an extension cord, which is a 2-prong, and so I bypass the safety feature of the 3-prong in the first place. But those little gray adapters are sold everywhere for $1. So does that make any sense? I mean, you're negating the safety feature of the 3-prong.
But we have to live that way.
Doesn't make sense. So just the other day, my wife said, "Hey, it's the 25th. Christmas is 2 months away."
Oh, that's
like
sick.
someone
I
throwing
can't
cold
believe
water in
somebody
your head.
said that
Oh, well,
out
you know.
loud. Oh my God.
Listen, there are some people who have their Christmas shopping done already.
Okay.
You know that. You know that.
I can't associate with those people. I don't
Lisa Anderson is back with us. Lisa is director of Boundless and Young Adults at Focus on the Family. She hosts the Boundless Show. It's a weekly podcast and radio show. And so we're talking today about how to do holidays on a budget. Lisa, is that even possible?
It's very possible. I love to say that I'm super cheap, so
That's so sweet.
Sometimes by choice, I don't know. Maybe that's been it's been good for guys I've dated in the past, that's for sure. But I think like being creative, like the problem is people just let the holidays own them and take over their lives and get all crazy, and then they just resent it and no one has a good time. So I'm like, just a little bit of planning on the front end, I think could get us down the, what do you call that? What's my sports analogy? Down the field,
Right.
to the goal.
Down the sideline, sprinting toward the end zone, you mean?
Something like that, yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Exactly.
Okay, so do you think the secret is in the planning?
I mean, I think so. Like for example, if everyone just decided, here we are coming off of a pandemic. If everyone just decided that you don't have to give to everyone in the world,
Oh, yeah.
that would just be a start. So all this pressure, far too many people are reading columns in magazines that talk about like the gifts you have to give to your hairdressers and your postmen and all this kind of stuff. And now every hairdresser and postman is going to call into the show and be like, hey, tell that woman to stop talking. But, just all this, like everyone and their brother, like single people have known this forever. Okay, this is my audience where we live, because it's like, we go home with our extended family and it's like you as the single person, or the young adult who's going home is like, hey, you're expected to buy a gift for every one of your siblings and their spouses and their kids. And you're just like, I can't even do this. And then, the single person gets this like family gift from everyone and they have it like easy because
Right.
you're just one person, So I think we have to get this pressure off to like give to everyone. So you have to pick the people that you're prioritizing, whether that's immediate family, whether that's a few friends, whether that's the people you're going to actually spend the holidays with. Decide who those people are, and then figure out how you can infuse some meaning into those gifts instead of some crazy, we can't even do Black Friday this year, you guys. We have like ships out in ports.
Right.
I don't even know how this is going to be accomplished. So I think we just all need to chill and come up with creative ways. Like I'm a big fan of, say, talking about the family here, giving a family group gift. So that might be like a board game for everyone, or it might be like an experience. If you have a sibling or a friend that has small kids, what about like a zoo membership for the year, or something where they're going to actually benefit from it throughout the year? It's not a bunch of junk that's going to break sitting around their house. So finding ways to do things that kind of allow you to consolidate and, kind of hit a home run in several different areas.
I like it.
I like it. What is that? Are you changing your mind on what you were going to get me?
No, we don't get anything. We don't get anything to eat for each other, at least. We just have made that rule, right?
We never have.
You're going to get a zoo membership this year. That's what you're going to get.
Okay, Lisa, I get this in practicality, but Christmas morning, right, when the big reveal comes and everyone goes, where's all the presents? And my stocking is empty. And mom and dad go, we got a zoo membership.
That's a good
Yeah.
point.
That's not going to work real well, is it?
Okay, well, maybe not. But honestly, I think you need to set expectations early. So a lot of kids, have you guys seen actually Amazon sent me a physical catalog
us
a
too.
week ago. Have
Really?
you seen it? Okay.
Yeah.
No.
So it is bringing back, hearkening to the olden days of Sears when kids used to be able to thumb through these catalogs. So now Amazon is bringing that back and giving parents a living nightmare in their homes
Great.
of allowing kids to start thumbing through this catalog before the holidays. So I think we got to set expectations of kids, this is what it's going to look like this year. We're going to do something as a family. We're going to do like this big thing. And then everyone gets, and I know some parents are way on top of this and they've done super aspirational things. Like I remember I had a friend back in the day who just talk about what are we doing? Little House on the Prairie. She said, every one of my kids gets a book to read, they get something practical and something they want. And those are their gifts. And the kids knew that that's what it was. And they just owned it and it became awesome.
That's cool.
And so some families can start charting that early on. Others, maybe it's going to be trickier. But I think too, again, getting back to the creativity, what about, like, here's something I always give to my young adults. What about giving a skill or something that you can contribute that is going to cost you nothing? So for some people, like my 20-somethings, it might be that they really are great at photography. So for a family member or something, they're going to give them a photo session free of charge. And it's going to take them some time and some effort and energy, but it's something that they can give. Or grandparents are so hard to give for. Yeah. What about a young adult or a teen, a digitally savvy teen saying, Grandma and Grandpa, for your Christmas present this year, I am going to organize all of your digital photos and put them in folders and edit them for you and make them manageable for you. I mean, that is something that, like, any grandma and grandpa who are like, please don't even talk to me about anything digital, are going to be all over. So again, something that you're good at. It might be, conversely, maybe an older person who just rocks out cooking, they might go to their, grandchild, maybe their adult grandchild, and be like, I want to teach you, let's come over on a Saturday. I'm going to teach you how to make my 3 best dishes, the ones that are easy, that you can do, you can succeed at. And I'm going to, and then you're spending time with your grandparent as well. So it's like a win-win. And it's just an opportunity to make it about something more than just checking off something in a catalog or an Amazon wish list.
That's really good, Lisa. I like those cooking ideas with Graham. Mm-hmm. I think that's really awesome.
And the idea of prioritizing, right? If you set the tone early on for the family. I remember, this is horrible, when our kids were super little, because Christmas when we were growing up was like this major deal. And it was like Christmas Eve, and I was looking at my little kids, and they were little kids. They were like little kids. And I was having like this meltdown in my head, like, I have not done enough as a father to make sure my kids are going to have a great Christmas morning.
So what did you do?
Yeah.
You tell the story.
It was midnight, and I went to Walmart on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, on Christmas Eve.
It was horrible. And I was like wandering around in a panic, and I bought something for the sake of buying it. I don't know why I did that.
Because it's parental panic. Okay. Peace
well,
squared.
at least that's not as bad. John, I will say that one Christmas I was staying with my mom, and I went Christmas Eve morning, I think, to Walmart to get wrapping paper.
Yeah.
And I can't even tell you the number of men that were there buying, let's be honest, jewelry at Walmart. Like, for I don't know how that went down, but I didn't have a good feeling about it.
At 2 a.m. on Christmas morning.
Yeah, that's not good.
It was bad at Walmart.
Right. That's just not good. Lisa Anderson is with us, director of Boundless and Young Adults at Focus on the Family. She's also the host of The Boundless Show, which is a weekly podcast and radio show.
Excellent. Okay,
before you leave us, Lisa, I want to ask you again to go back and talk about specifically people in our families who are young adults, who are unmarried, who don't have children. What kinds of unfair expectations do you think we're putting on them, or maybe different ways that we can look at what they're looking at when it comes to a holiday like this?
Yeah, and some of that goes beyond even gift giving. I mean, I think some of it comes straight up to negotiating even travel expectations, say, on the front end, because it's usually like, hey, young adult, single person, you're going to be expected to travel because clearly, grandma and grandpa aren't traveling. Your siblings who now have kids, they're not going to travel because that's too expensive. So you just travel. And so it's like, not that young adults aren't, willing to travel and stuff, but maybe you can make it a little more accessible for them because, we all know Thanksgiving and Christmas is like the most expensive time of the year to travel. You can let's just be honest. I have a fair amount of family that is near Fargo, North Dakota. First of all, who even wants to go there for Christmas? Secondly, it is like going to Antarctica because the tickets are outrageous. So, I remember when I was younger and I was like, you guys, come on. And so maybe the family can kind of chip in to get their young adult to join the celebration or make that part of their gift or whatever. But that's a good thing. And then the other thing is just, again, don't treat them like they're the single young adults at the kids' table. So, I had a Boundless fan once who wrote in and said, Lisa, I'm going to be honest, I had some really hard feelings about this because when I showed up at my parents' house, they put an air mattress on the kitchen floor for me to sleep. So that was just kind of where they were because everyone else took the rooms. And so, of course, early morning, people are like stepping over them and making their coffee. And it just made them feel unwelcome. So it's kind of like think it through, have the conversation. Don't assume that all the singles in your family or the young adults are going to be super eager to do XYZ. So that's one thing to think
Those
of.
are good.
And no one likes this. When I say this, people hate this advice, again, so please don't hate me. But maybe you don't always, especially with extended family, the larger groups of family, maybe you don't have to celebrate right at Christmas. It might be good to have an extended gathering after the holidays. Gifts are going to be cheaper. Travel's going to be cheaper. You can get together with your immediate family and then make something bigger happen. Or like I tell my Fargo family, I will see y'all in the summer later,
Right.
But also the other thing that's really big, so there's gifts, there's the expense around all that stuff. And then something I always love to remind folks, marrieds and others with your single friends and family is don't use the holidays to go into an inquisition about your single family members' love life or what in the world they're up to. I mean, this is like sitting at a party and all of a sudden it's like, open season on singles of like, let's just ask all these personal questions about who they're dating and what's up and why aren't they married yet and stuff. So be sensitive to that. Just like married people. You don't want anyone asking how your love life's going at a party. Trust me. Be sensitive to the singles as well, and just make it a fun family time where everyone can reminisce and have fun and play with the kids and, have a little bit of, make it a little bit equitable in what's covered and how.
That's
Fabulous.
awesome.
Well, good. I mean, last Christmas was so weird that
Yeah.
most people spent it, in really tight little circles. So hopefully this year is a better Christmas for everybody, and you'll celebrate, and you'll do so wisely on a budget.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is, coming off of a year with COVID, my goodness, people should be gathering. That is
Right.
so awesome to be able to do that. So just make sure everyone feels included and feels loved. That's more important than all the stuff surrounding the holidays.
Yeah,
That's so
stuff,
good.
Liz.
Thanks, Lise.
Very nice. Good to see you, Lisa.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good talking to you guys.
That's
Yeah,
terrific.
thanks for
That's
doing this.
Lisa Anderson. She's director of Boundless and Young Adults at Focus on the Family. But you can watch or listen to her weekly podcast, The Boundless Show. It's both. Thanks so much.
We'll take a quick break. When we do come back,
The smell of pumpkin spice.
pumpkin spice.
Why does it move us? There's a scientific explanation. pumpkin spice thing, I basically was dragged into last week without really being able to resist it. It was a peer pressure thing, and
It was
I
a
know
movement, is what
it
it
was a
was.
movement. It started by our producer Christy, who is just all things pumpkin spice, like totally all about it. And I had a Starbucks gift card I wanted to share with you guys.
I appreciate that.
And so I put out the offer, and I said, "Hey, does anybody want anything from Starbucks?" And John said, "I'll take
Give me a latte.
You said a latte, right?" And then Christy said.
Pumpkin spice latte.
And then as soon as he saw that, he said, wait a minute. Unless it's too late, I would like to switch to her drink.
I said that.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Then to our boss, I said, he had already said he didn't want anything. And I said, make my day, please, by ordering a pumpkin spice latte, because it seems like a little bit of a girly drink. Sorry. It did. And he was like, I would like a pumpkin spice latte. I was like,
Give it
what?
a shot. I've
So
never
then
had
I
one.
was the only one. So I thought, well, I can't. I was going to go in and get my normal iced tea.
Yeah.
I felt weird about it. So I just decided to do straight up. So I got a pumpkin spice latte as well, only mine was iced. Your alls was more hot. Brought them all back. And I expected that I would, like it for a little bit and throw the rest out.
But you liked it.
I drank the whole thing. I thought it was
you did.
really excellent. And you thought?
Mine was good. It's super sweet.
Okay.
Which I'm not,
Yeah.
but I liked it. I enjoyed it. Would I do it again? I'm not so sure.
Christy.
Do I like it? Was that a question? Do I like it? Like,
It's a mission statement.
It is a mission statement. So news comes from National Public Radio that Morning Edition spoke with Jason Fisher, a professor of psychological and brain science at Johns Hopkins University, researching the science behind pumpkin spice's appeal.
Oh, no. There's a science.
This is what he found. He said these associations, the association between the smell of pumpkin spice and fall in America, okay, they form year after year, and they give us a sense of familiarity. And so when we start to smell the pumpkin spice things, it gives us a feeling of nostalgia.
Well, no, wait a second. Pumpkin spice is a fairly new thing.
Well,
Right? I would say burning
19
leaves.
1920s is when pumpkin spice
What?
was.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would say like if people remember people used to burn leaves in their backyard.
No,
right?
I don't remember that.
Well, I remember that.
Do
I mean,
you?
yeah, and that
Okay.
was kind of like, oh, fall's here. We're all burning our leaves.
Pumpkin spice is a lot better than that.
I don't think so. I like the smell of burning leaves.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
People still do that in, not
Rural-
in the city.
Right, I was going to say in rural places.
Yeah.
Pumpkin spice flavoring, NPR goes on to say, can be so evocative that it throws people off the scent of a very important fact. It does not contain any pumpkin.
Really?
Yeah,
But it does
not.
contain spice?
It comes from nutmeg, cinnamon, and allspice, which is why sometimes people that smell pumpkin spice get it confused with apple pie smell. Like pumpkin spice smells like apple pie.
No
'cause
kidding.
it's
That's weird. Okay.
like the same spices.
Yeah, right. Interesting. All
Yeah.
right. Well,
So basically, it's saying, "Oh, it's fall again." It's making me feel like,
Right.
"Oh, I like fall. I remember last fall. It was a good fall." And then
Right.
we're all ordering five
you-
pumpkin spice lattes.
did you say that you were making a pumpkin pie?
I was going to make you apple crisp.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, except that I don't know
Yo.
if I can do that
What?
because I packed up all my baking dishes.
All right.
Sorry,
well, you can buy me
guys.
some apple
Okay.
tarts or something.
I don't know if I'm buying anybody anything. I bought you all the lattes.
All right.
Come on, you guys.
This is my turn.